Welcome to An Aries and Pisces Walk Into a Coffee Shop, the podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Bridget, she, her.
And I'm Tiffany, she, her. This is a podcast where two friends let go of perfectionism and talk unedited. You can find us at the links in our show notes.
Support the show by buying us a coffee. Also, subscribe and share this episode with a friend. Hello.
Hello.
Happy podcasting. It's been a while.
Yes, it has.
Are we coming back to life, or are we coming to life through it all?
Ooh, good question. I have been feeling too alive.
Oh.
So I think that this is I feel like I went through like a really intense incubation period where I thought that time would stop for me, and it didn't. It just kept going. So I had a month-long incubation, and now the world kept spinning, and so now I feel that like discombobulated, oh, I have to catch up, and I'm trying to tell myself that there's no catching up to do.
Okay, yeah. I had this thought the other day that I was like, all of this, so we're in September, and I'm like, oh my God, it's almost the end of the year. Like, we're at the end of summer, which is the most depressing for me. And but then I had this thought that I was like, the months just keep going. Like, days just keep going. Time just keeps going. Technically, the year, like, that doesn't mean anything. We don't need to rush through all these things or have all of this stuff completed by the end of the year, because it doesn't matter. It's just going to be the next day after that day. And so I'm like, I would love to let go of this, like, and this is something you and I talk about often, but it's like, oh my God, the month is almost over. Like, it's like everything's going so fast. It's like everyone I talk to, it's like, oh my God, we're already in September. We're already this far through the year. But I'm so tired of feeling like I have to like run to catch up, that I'm so far behind, and that I'm never going to like get to the finish line. There's so much to do, but like there is no finish line.
Yeah.
Like, so just walk. Can we just fucking chill?
Yeah, I keep on having that thought about, because I just kept on thinking, oh no, I lost an entire month, but I did way too much living in that month. Like, there was a lot of living. There was a lot of processing. There was a lot of transformation. There was a lot of like catalyst moments. And when I think about it in that way, I'm like, well, there's nothing to catch up on. I did the most. But now it's the end of summer, and there's some weird, that idea of like, oh no, it's the end of something. I wasted it. Like, I should have been doing something different. Or I thought I would be somewhere I'm not. Which is my whole life.
Yeah.
I really need to let go of that. Oh, I thought I'd be somewhere else right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm also really, really holding on to that, and the practicing of letting things take time or going slowly. Oh my God, I pulled this card today. It's a new card out of my deck, and I was like, I gotta read this one to Tiffany.
Yes, please.
you're gonna know why in a second here, but it's like I'm really chewing on this. It is Cape Primrose, and this is from the
Mm.
Pythia Botanica, volume 2. It's As the Crow Lies. And
Oh.
I was like, is that a miss? Like, shouldn't it be flies? But allow me to read it to you.
Yes, please.
Cape Primrose is As the Crow Lies, where the most likely path is fettered with deceit yet to be seen. Beware the shortcut hiding perilous peaks, or an eye-line view above floors that creak. Savor the safety of the long way home.
Oh, okay. Fine.
Yeah, so I'm like, wow, all of this talk and stuff about like having to do things so efficiently for like energy levels and things. And I'm like, okay, well, wait a second. Maybe the most efficient way isn't what I have been taught that of what, like efficiency and productivity and stuff is. What if it is about taking the long way home? I've been thinking about
Uh-huh.
this. I've been thinking about this as like for a while now. I have realized
Yeah.
that like I do things, I try to get them done so fast. So like if I have to go to the store, I'm like feeling like I'm rushing, and I'm like, wait a second,
Mm-hmm.
why? Like I don't have to be anywhere. I don't have, this doesn't have to go quickly. Like, and so I have been practicing sitting in my car for a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
Or like the other day I sat in the garage. PS, I get to park in the garage right now, which is very exciting. Um yeah, and I listened to an entire song in the garage and just like belted it out and just like sat there, and I was like, I can take this time for myself.
Yeah, you
Like,
can.
and so now I'm like, oh my god, take the long way home. Like I'm thinking about how I like to, I'm looking at the GPS. What's the quickest, shortest way?
Yeah,
What
our
if I took my
hyperfixation on
time?
doing everything in the most perfect, efficient manner
Yeah. What if I
and
just
stressing
didn't?
out. Yep. Synchronicity of synchronicities. I pulled a card today because Christy and I have been doing a little transformation spell.
Oh.
She's been raising monarch caterpillars, and she dedicated one of the chrysalises to me. And so I
Oh,
got to name her, and she was emerging today. And so I pulled a card.
wow.
And I know. And normally they emerge in the earlier part of the day. And she's like, oh, I thought she was going to come out today, but it's already like past noon. I guess it's not today. She's just an afternoon baby like me. She's just like
Oh.
later half of the day. We don't do mornings. And the card that I pulled was a new one. I pulled it from my favorite Oracle deck, the Wild Kuan Yin deck. And I love that deck, but often when I'm pulling for myself, it's like the same 5 cards over
Mhm.
and over and over again because I'm a slow learner. And so I only ever really see new cards if I'm pulling for someone else. Um, but today I got a new card for me that I've never had
Ooh.
before. And it's called Be Led by the Path Before You. I don't know if this will pick it up because I don't have the card on me, but I have a
Okay.
picture of it on my phone. But these are flower petals that she is scattering in front of that sweet beastie. And the whole message is basically take your time, like walk
Mhm.
the path, like stop rushing. It
Shoot.
talks about like it's like a reminder that I'm where I'm supposed to be doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's like this idea of, oh yeah, this line right in my face. You have not made some error simply because your life doesn't necessarily look or feel the way you imagined it would at this point.
Mm.
You may fear sometimes, but that is a greater hand guiding the course. So it's just like, hey, trust it. Like, you don't know anything, basically. Stop trying to act like you're able to predict something when you're not. And so the whole thing is just like, that thing that we talk about where there are no like wrong choices, there's just choices, and then you make more choices, and everything's like a learning experience, and what's happening is what's happening. Like it's not wrong if it doesn't look the way, or doesn't look the way that you had considered. And so
Wow.
Virgo season is so she's really telling it like it is, and I don't love it. It's what I need, I guess.
Yeah, that was a good card. I feel like that is a card that I'm like, oh shit, I often need that reminder.
Yeah, me too.
That plagues me.
Isn't it so interesting that we've been working on that same thing for so long, and it's so difficult?
I think it's like I can see bits and pieces of it, but yeah, it still keeps just coming back.
You know what analogy just popped into my head? Where it's like, you can't, there's like that saying about like not being able to heal in the environment that made you sick. And that, which sounds bleak, but I think it's that idea that we just live in a world of capitalism and colonialism and white supremacy and yada yada. And so it's like a society is set up to reward that sickness. And so it's like, even though like we're healing from it, it's just something we're constantly having to manage because we keep on getting like contaminated by that like same.
I think that's right. I mean, because it's especially, I'm noticing, I think now with seasonal changes. So, for example, summer, we are in September. Technically, the equinox has not yet shifted us into fall or autumn, but like months ago in stores, there's like Halloween shit out and there's like all this stuff. And so I'm like, that's great. But like, I want to be where we are. I want to be where I am.
Yeah,
And
I
so
don't want to
it
be
is,
thinking that
yeah,
far ahead.
it is hard to escape that when it is everywhere around us. Like keep pushing us forward, like to the thing. And I'm like, I just want to be here. Like my practice right now is practicing being in this present moment.
Right.
And that is feels kind of like a battle again, against stuff around me while I'm
Oh,
practicing it like
right.
here.
Sorry, I just had a real time
Give it
like,
to me.
whoa, I just had like a dizzy like shift. So the past month and a half had been really hard. But when people would ask like how I'm doing, I was really tired. I was struggling in some ways. But then I like, as the weeks wore on, I had to, not had to, so it was like the holding of the both and. So I've been practicing that, holding both things at the same time, the hard and the easy, the like grief and the gratitude. And the past month and a half really felt like, oh, I'm doing it. Like I'm holding the things together. And people would ask me like how I was doing, and I would talk about being present. So people are like, wow, that sounds really hard to be like out of your routine. And it was, but it was strangely energizing. And the thing was presence. Like things got synthesized in a way that every day all the other things shrunk down so small. They seem so petty and insignificant, where I'm just like, why would I be worrying about that when there's this life to live and these people to invest in? And And it was presence. Like, even I got in the habit of like taking photos again, walking around my neighborhood and like literally day to day noticing the differences of like the flowers and where the butterflies hang
Mm.
out and where the goldfinches like to be. And like I know that about my neighborhood now because I
Mm-hmm.
slowed down and took the time to focus on that. And
Mm-hmm.
then even though I was really tired and worried, there were these moments of just like pure nervous system regulation because I was just, nothing else matters. I'm doing this right now. I'm spending this time with this person and reading this book, like in a way that I haven't been able to access in a long time.
Mm-hmm. That makes me think of two things. One is Myrtle from the Pythia Volume 1, which is in love and death. Like
Mm-hmm.
all else is fucking trivial, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, but then this was the thing that I texted you about earlier with the moment of what I later realized is embodiment. I think like it
Mm-hmm.
had to like come through a conversation um for someone else to point that out to me, like my new therapist. And I was like, oh, that's what embodiment is? Like, I
That's why
think
we
that
need people to reflect back to us the thing we're doing.
I was like, I think that that was another one of those things that I've been holding on to, like, okay, I've got to like embody these things. I've got right practice embodiment. I get that's the thing. And I think that I've been thinking about it in such a way that I wasn't realizing when it was already happening in my life because I was thinking that it was going to look or
Yeah.
feel a certain way. But
Tell me everything.
this is so profoundly unprofound. Like it is not going to sound like a single thing, but it was
That's how you
such,
know it's the deepest.
oh my God. So
Because
I'm
these
doing,
things are mundane, quote
yeah.
unquote. Like,
And
yeah,
it's
they're
the
nothing
thing,
and everything.
it's the thing that like I've heard so many times, right?
Mhm.
So in this moment, I'm doing aerial and I was doing a hamstring stretch, right? So the back of my leg, I have my like leg in the sling and I'm just
Mhm.
standing there on one leg, stretching the back of my other leg. And I just was like, oh my God, it's just this moment. It's how this muscle, how this leg feels in this moment. It's not my
Mhm.
other leg. It's not, it's just, I, it was just like I could see that moment in all of the other moments that I've had where I've heard these things from
Yeah.
mentors, from yoga instructors, from, that like it doesn't matter, your left and right side might feel different today. It doesn't matter how
Mhm.
stretched this yesterday, right? It's like in this moment here today and all of the stuff I've battled with in classes about like judgments on me for like how I'm moving and what my body looks like and when I'm modifying things and
Yeah.
what are other people gonna think and like all this stuff. And that all just came down to that moment of like, I was like, this is it. It's just this leg. It's just this muscle in this second.
Mhm.
And I was just like, whoa.
Yeah. And you got to just be present with it and not be judging it or criticizing it
Yeah.
or even the opposite of just being like unnecessarily praising, like just like an
Mm-hmm.
appraisal of like, oh, it's better today
Yeah.
because tomorrow it could
Right.
be totally different.
Right. Yeah. It
Yeah,
was
that's
not,
profound.
yeah. It was like all of that. And like, I could just be feeling what I was feeling. And so I
Mm,
could move in a way that, that thing of like, okay, we'll tap into what your body needs and do that. And for so long, I've been like, what the fuck does that mean? And it was just like, oh, it's just this. And I was like, this is
Mhm.
just, this is it. This is the power of now. This is presence. This is like, I, this is that. And then I told her that in therapy, and she was like, oh, well, yeah, you made the connection from all that
Mhm.
stuff that you know in your mind. You made the
Yeah.
connection down into your body. And I was like, that's it. Like, that's what that is. Like, that's
Surprise!
like, like I've been holding out for some huge moment of
Oh my
like, oh, when all
goodness.
this stuff drops from my head into my body and I can feel it and I can feel in my body and I know what it is like in my body. I'm like, I already feel in my body. Like
Mhm.
I already do that. It's just like connecting with it in the moment.
Yeah,
That's
that's why
it.
I asked you earlier if the things that you had been experiencing felt rapid to you. Because we
Yeah.
had this conversation a while back, and I can't remember the exact context, other than I remember the feeling of like things just like clicking into place, and you were just like, it happened out of nowhere. And I was like, well, and years of work to
Right.
practice
Right.
doing the thing that then you found it easier to access in a moment that was difficult because of
Yeah.
years of
Yeah.
practicing it. And I think that this is very related because I've had this thought as well where I do spend so much time judging myself and feeling like, yeah, I'm waiting for this big, profound, permanent shift.
Mm,
And
mm.
it is really hard for me to listen to the card that is be led by the path before you, where it's literally like, I don't teleport. I want to so bad, but I don't have teleportation powers. I have 2 feet, luckily, that I can one step at a time my way through a forest. And that's just what it is. It's
Uh-huh.
not going to be profound. That tree is going to look like that tree is going to look like that tree until they don't anymore because I walked far enough that I'm in a different type of forest now. But it's going to be gradual. And that is so hard to accept. What teleportation so
Yeah,
bad?
I I was trying to articulate this to this therapist that I because I was telling her about how in these moments where I'm getting these insights and stuff like lately that don't feel profound, but they do. But it's like in these moments, I can so very clearly see everything that I have done or everything that has happened to bring me to
Yeah.
this moment. So I think that that's helping me to break down that thing of like feeling like I need something else or I need the next thing or the next thing is going to
Mm,
fix all the problems, it's going to solve everything. It's going to right like do the thing like striving
yeah.
for cuz I'm doing the 75-day challenge and we had to put together our I guess like new habits that we're going to do throughout this
Mhm.
challenge. And like one of mine I decided was to keep it simple. Literally, part of my challenge is to do the least because
Yeah,
I'm always like, oh, I'm going to do this challenge. I'm going to do fucking everything. I'm going to do the most because I feel like I have to do the most to get the most, to get the benefit out of it. Or I have
I
to
do
do it
know that.
100% perfectly right to like, otherwise, if I don't, then that's why I still have all these problems and I'm not doing enough and I'm not doing good enough. And I'm like, holy fucking shit. I'm like, here's what I'm realizing in this moment is that I don't technically think it matters what like the modality or like the thing is. Like if I try
Right.
something new, like EMDR or yoga or like meditation, whatever the thing is,
Mhm.
and I
Going
have
on walks.
yeah, like and I have a big insightful moment, it's not because I did that walk. It's because of
Right.
everything in my life just like connected and led up to that moment. Or in therapy,
Ooh,
it's
mhm.
like, it's not because I saw this hypnotherapist and we did hypnotherapy. It's because I have done all of this work, and this was the moment that was meant to come through in this conversation. And
Mm.
so I'm
Oh.
starting to
Mm-hmm.
kind of like break those things, maybe like taking things off of pedestals of
Yeah, like,
like,
oh, this thing isn't going to be like the next thing that I need to cure
right.
or level up or whatever.
Yeah, like it could be like a
It's
cool
just,
like tool and resource, and I'm going
yeah,
to get something out of it, but that's not the thing. The thing is me
yeah,
living my life.
right. This makes me think of a conversation I had a couple of weeks back where someone sent me one of those yogi tea
Mm.
bag sayings. You know
Uh-huh.
how they have on the little tag, like a little quote? And it said something like about, um, it was talking about how a lantern isn't the light. And the person that texted it to me was just like, I'm not sure I know what this means. And I was just like, I don't either, but it made me think of the idea that it's not like a lantern is like generating light. It's a tool to use the light in a way that helps you when you
Mm-hmm.
need it. So
Mm-hmm.
like, especially because I was thinking about those types of lanterns where they have like sides that can move so you can like direct the light in a certain way.
Mm.
So like you can have like a wider ambient light, or if you have all of it shuttered and then just like, you know, a beam of light that could give you like a different insight. And then I was just thinking about it so much that the thing that popped into my head as an analogy, which I think fits here as well, is the idea that like I love tarot cards, but the tarot cards are cards. They're a tool.
Mm-hmm.
It's who's looking at them and interpreting them and reading them that gives them the magic.
Right.
It's just a tool to direct the wisdom that you already are
Yeah.
holding. It's not, they don't have their own wisdom.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, I think that the tools and that desperate need to feel this like monumental transportation shift got conflated.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like, well, I'm gonna find the thing that teleports me. And I'm just like, oh, right. It's just
There, right. It's like there is no that thing. There is no finish line.
no.
It is literally, Tiffany, my uh, most favorite and least favorite saying in the world. But it's all the fucking journey. That's
Yep.
it. That's it. That's it. It's just being and doing and
Yeah. Not
living.
going harder, faster, more.
None of it matters.
Mm-mm. It makes me think of an anecdote from someone who did psychedelic research back in the day when that was still when it was like newer in the States to be using that for therapeutic purposes. And they were grateful for the experiences they had. But as they were talking about it, they're like, in hindsight, I wish I had gone slower. I went
Mm.
too hard, too fast, and it caused me more strife than it needed to. And I would never recommend anybody do what I did. It was
Hmm.
too much. And it was harder to integrate because of that. And I'm just like, oh, right. Like we do have to take things a step at a time and slow because that's how things get integrated. That's how practice works. You don't
Hmm.
learn something, do it, and then, okay, I have that skill done. Like it changes and you have to keep on revisiting it forever. That's just the fact of being alive. And it's so funny that I keep on wanting to like transcend what it means to be like in a human body on planet Earth. And I'm just like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, this is literally the whole point. Have you watched The Good Place? Have we talked
Oh,
about
yeah.
that? Have we talked about that on here?
I don't
Wait,
think we have, but I love that show. I haven't thought about it in a bit.
we just finished watching it like a few weeks ago, maybe.
Oh, okay.
But that's literally the thing of like they spend all
Mhm.
this time trying to get to the good place. They get there and then they realize that like, oh, well, when you can just have and do everything that you want, like it just everything loses meaning and life's miserable.
Mhm. Yeah.
And they're like, oh no, like what? Like, so like we don't, like we don't actually, that wouldn't be fulfilling. And I had another thing, but it went somewhere else.
I'm curious if this resonates with you, is having a conversation with someone else where we were kind of lamenting the fact that we have this thing in common in which we seem to need intensity to learn a thing. Like, we can't just learn something easy. We have to seek out the most intense version
I
for it to actually make a shift or affect us.
I'm curious to hear more, but that's making me think of how I just the other day asked for help with making goals towards something that
Mm-hmm.
I feel like is um impossible for me, so I haven't made any headway on it
Yeah.
because I can't identify with part of it that seems possible or doable, and then like so I can't get excited about it. And so I'm thinking about this thing in terms of like possibly has to do with like ADHD. I don't know all the terminology and the whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but like I feel like there has to be some kind of like right excitement, as you said, intensity. That made me think of excitement. There has to be some kind of like thrill, some kind of something that I'm like going for and like really like jazzed up
Mm-hmm.
about. Like otherwise, yeah, no, all throughout high school, college, I would be sleeping in my textbooks because fuck that.
It's
But
exhausting.
like, I mean, I don't think I ever fell asleep in band or like in Spanish or like, like
Mm-hmm.
things that I was actually interested in.
Right.
Like, so I do, yeah. Do you have like a specific example or
Hmm. I just, it seems to me that I'm trying to think of a real life example, but nothing's coming up immediately. It's related to that analogy I've used with you before, where one of my practices is if we're looking at a scale from 1 to 10, my problem was I couldn't shift or do anything until I was like in crisis mode at like 8 or 9. I wouldn't even know that I was in trouble until I was already at an 8 or 9.
Mhm.
And I wanted to try to practice noticing things at a 3 or a 4 before I
Mhm.
did something about it. And when I was talking to this friend, she was telling me about a personal experience where she wanted to explore something about herself. And of course, as she and I have in common, we just like have to choose the most extreme pressure cooker, dive into the deep end face first, like to feel something, to make a shift.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, in hindsight, when I do things like that, I think, oh, I probably could have taken smaller steps and got to the same place with a lot less strife. And sometimes that looks like not upholding my boundaries when they're being crossed a lot.
Mm.
Like, I could have learned the same lessons from certain relationships in a much gentler way. But oh no, I have to choose something 100%. So I have to like stand in the coals, like set myself on fire, withstand, endure before I'm like, oh, I get to have wants and needs. I get to have respect. I get to have boundaries. I get to rest. I get to take things slow. I get to not be rushed. I get to not know. I get to not know things. I don't have to decide anything. And it seems to me that I keep on, and it's shifting now, which is why I think I could talk about it this way, is I'm starting to see a shift in myself that I'm choosing the gentler path, which I thought was going to feel like the good place, and it doesn't, because I'm still me. So I think it's healthier, but it's different. And so I'm still uncomfortable.
This sounds like something that I've been practicing for a while, of the not like the all or nothing thing. And
Yep.
yeah, okay. I think that
Yep.
I've been playing with this for a while now. It's like slowly coming into focus, but yeah, like I would do that. I think like with what I just said about this challenge, it's like,
Yep.
I am gonna jump in and literally do everything
Mm-hmm.
at, like to the extreme. And so yeah, my practice for a while now, years probably, has been just making small changes, or like just doing like little bits. I'm trying to think of an example. Um, I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example. I maybe this is an example, but now to me, I think that maybe years ago it would have felt like, oh, I can't do that. Because years ago, I would have jumped into this challenge and been like, I'm doing everything, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
like, part of this challenge I decided that I'm going to do is, um, well, I already have my morning practice that I love, right? I make my smoothie, I sit down to journal, and then for a long time after that, it would be I would listen to a meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the past 4 months, I was like, breath work every day. So it changed from meditation into breath work. And then I don't have access to that app anymore. So I was like, okay, what's it going to be? Go back to meditation. I was falling asleep. This ain't it. I need
Yeah.
something that is like, I don't know, going to not put me to sleep, but make me feel more like alive. Um,
Mm.
But part of this challenge is um, like dancing was one of the suggestions. So I think I told
Yeah,
you this, that
you
so
did.
I decided that off of one of these playlists, I'm going to dance to like one or two songs, and as like part of my morning practice. And now, like, I guess, like, I could have looked at all of these suggestions in this challenge and picked like five new suggestions, tossed out my whole morning routine, just started doing all of those things all at once. Like, that I could have done that, but I was like,
Mm.
but I think at this point, that didn't even occur to me because I was like, no, I love my morning routine. I love the journaling. I'm not like, that's my thing. That's my fucking thing. And so, like, how can I just modify what I'm doing slightly
Yeah.
to fit this challenge? And instead of like overhauling and, completely changing, it's just like, what can I like tweak a little bit? Because
Right.
doing this dancing is a fucking challenge for me. I'm
Yeah.
working through lots of self judgments. It's really
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable. It's awkward. I am not into doing physical movement at that time in the morning. So,
Yep.
like, I'm like, that this is a big enough challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think perhaps maybe like something like that is a good, I guess maybe like indicator of the the practicing of the not doing like the all or nothing stuff.
Oh no, Bridget, I just had a thought.
What?
I don't like it, but I think it's
Uh,
true. I think Oh, what just popped in my head, because as you're speaking, I was thinking about all the times in which I was like, oh, I don't do yoga because I'm not doing it every day for an hour.
Right.
Or
Right.
like
Right.
when you said, oh, I'm a person that doesn't walk anymore because you got
Mm-hmm.
sick and had to take a week off or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it just occurred to me that that kind of intensity, like standard intensity of like the all or nothing,
Mm-hmm.
is a way to sidestep being embodied. We're not in our bodies when we're pushing and make like judgments where it's just like, we have to walk every day or else we're not someone who walks.
Right.
Well, that's just sidestepping listening to your body and being in the moment, because sometimes the moment means you gotta lay yourself down.
Yeah.
You got sick. Your body
Yeah.
doesn't want to walk right now. Or in
Yeah.
my case, like the all or nothing yoga thing, I get stuck in these like spells of feeling like I don't do yoga or I can't get back to yoga because I hadn't done yoga. So then I guess I just am someone who doesn't do it anymore, which stops me from getting to the mat because it's
Yeah.
just this huge emotional hurdle. And then my body gets more and more resistant to doing it. And it's not embodiment because my body does
Mm-hmm.
actually want to move that way.
Yeah.
But now I'm ignoring my body because of the all or nothing thinking.
Oh, fucking.
So we do actually just have to slow down, take our time. And it's not all or nothing. It's right. It's what's happening right now.
Yeah. And I'm finding in this, like, how I have been setting these intentions of being more present, being in the now. I, I have also been doing a lot of releasing of judgments. And we've
Yeah.
been talking a lot about this, but it's like, I'm realizing that, like, that is what is holding me back, is
Mhm.
all of these, like, voices and stuff in my head. And that makes so much sense when you're talking about yoga. And I'm looking at my silk here and just thinking about all, like, probably almost every time I practice, I'm
Mhm.
thinking about how I used to go to a studio almost every day of the week, an hour
Mhm.
and 15-minute long class. And I'm
Yeah.
like thinking about all of that. And that is like judgments upon me in this practice now,
Mhm.
where I'm like, oh, I'm not doing enough, right? Or I
Yep.
used to do that, or right? Like
Mhm.
this doesn't count because it's not an hour long.
Yep. Been there, done that.
Uh,
You're not embodied when you're doing that, huh?
right, right. And
Yeah,
so,
I do that with my physical practices. And I mean, even journaling. Like I've
mm,
told you before where uh I was like admiring your journal practice and like trying to learn from you to get back into my own, because I did that to myself where it's just like so many judgments, and especially like when my brain fog started getting really bad and I just couldn't journal in the way that I used to. And so I just decided that it wasn't actually journaling if I did it in a different way. Like it was such a weird, insidious way
mhm.
of those thoughts manifesting that like it was so subtle. I didn't notice it was happening until I was just like in too deep. And I was just like, oh no, I've been like, I created such a high hurdle for myself without even realizing it. Like it was just so all of a sudden that I was like, oh, I got again.
I think insidious is such a good word because that's what I'm finding. I'm like, oh, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not even realizing that I all of these judgments and stuff are going on. Like I'm not even realizing it.
Yeah, until you are, and then it's like, whoa, like it's kind of dizzying,
Like
like to feel
all of
like,
that is in there. Like holy shit, no wonder I'm exhausted all the time.
uh-huh.
Fuck. Um I had an interesting thought when I was journaling
Mm-hmm.
this morning. Um I think because of like the way that I write, and I have heard other friends like you and another friend will all share things together that are like, oh, here's an insight from my journaling, or here's an insight from whatever. And I this friend has like read me some things from her journaling practice, and I'm like, holy shit, that's how you write in your journal. Like, it sounds like this beautiful piece of prose. And like, I could say the same thing for anything that you write, even just like a text message. And like, that has been a thing for me of like, oh, I have to let go of all of that, because I like, I was just like thinking about the way that I was writing today, and thinking about like remembering that. And I was like, what if I read part of what I wrote to somebody? They'd probably think the same thing. They'd probably think like, "Oh wow, you write like that every day?" But
Mm-hmm.
to me, all I'm doing is just fucking dumping it all out.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that that was a very interesting thing of like letting go that this has to look a certain way or be a certain way, and just letting
Right.
it just be. And
Mm-hmm.
knowing that there's value in that, like even if I can't see it or recognize it.
Yeah. Because I think that is very related to something that you and I have talked about a lot, where one of the things about relationships like ours is this ability to like reflect back to each other
Hmm.
and that feedback loop. Because I think it is really hard to see yourself when you're just with you all the time. And
Yeah, like our hair.
yeah.
And getting compliments on our hair from other people when we're like, oh, what the fuck, this like, like hasn't been cut in a year, I haven't dyed it in how long, like it's, and they're like, oh my god, I love your hair, and I'm like, what are
Thanks. I've been
you
hating
seeing?
it for weeks, for
Yeah, like what do
months.
you can you show can you show me what you're looking at? Because I can't see it.
Yeah, it's a very good example of that exact thing where it's just like, oh, right. Things that come easy to you, or the way that you look or present, or your energy, like it's hard to like, I think, actually experience it for yourself the way other people are able to, which is why I think we talk so much about like, oh, healing happens in relationship and community,
Mhm.
because we need other people to kind of give us that shift
Yeah,
of
and
perspective.
I think that that's helping me letting go of like the self judgments.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Oh, I love that you had that for yourself. What a beautiful thought experiment. Like, oh, wait, this thing that I'm doing would look really different to somebody else. I'm going to think about that more, because I've been having this like same conversation with my loved ones where kind of embarrassed. I keep on having the same message happen over and over again with people that don't talk to each other, even where they're just like, God, I wish you could see yourself the way we see you.
Mm,
Like, I wish you could see yourself the way that I'm seeing you. I wish you could give yourself the credit that like you deserve because you're doing A, B, or C. And I'm just like, I've heard it often enough that now I'm starting to get like, I feel embarrassed, where I'm just like, oh no, it's like the same thing over and over again. So like, what? I feel like I'm like really, really missing something that seems to other people to be very obvious, and it's starting to feel really, what is that feeling? It's that embarrassment of like, there must be something obvious happening here that I just cannot see.
hmm.
And I think I'm like, oh no, like what is that? like maybe a judgment of like being like slow somehow, or like just like
Mm.
not maybe as God, what is that? I just keep on thinking it's embarrassing. What's embarrassing? Oh, okay. I think that's what it is. I have a thing where a part of my masking most of my life is I don't have to be told, I already know. Because if I already tell myself the things, then no one else has to. And I never have to acknowledge that I have a shortcoming, or
Mm.
like it's like a vulnerability shield that I've practiced most of my life. And I've done a lot of work to like soften that and lower it, where I'm just like, no one knows anything. That's kind of the point, what we're doing here. But I still like get these like embarrassment things where like if I think someone has to teach me something, or if I'm like missing the point over and over again, I get
Mm.
embarrassed because like I don't want anyone else to be able to like call me out on anything. Feels
Mm.
like a protection, like an armor. But it's heavy and it's hot and I'm tired and I don't
Take it
want to have
off.
armor.
Take it off. Let's all run around naked.
Yeah, exactly. I want to go skinny dipping. Like I could be walking around with like clanking metal. It's hard on my ears. It's sensory overload. And yet I'm clinging to it for dear life. Like I'm just gonna dissolve into a disgusting puddle of goo without it.
Maybe you'll emerge a butterfly.
Oh, you're so wise.
Maybe that's what's happening. Maybe it is the goo in there, but you're just transforming it.
Okay. Fine, I'll be goo.
Okay, fine.
Again.